Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm Dan Shapiro. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Glowforge, and I am here with Rachel Timmerman, also known as
Hi.
the Analytical Mommy. Hi, Rachel.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Uh,
Hi, Dan.
so, so just to tell everybody a little bit about your background, TheAnalyticalMommy.com is a blog where you break down problems around parenting, cooking, crafting, and more. Your crafty side also brought you to start the booming Glowforge Aura and Glowforge Spark Facebook community, which has more than 6,000 members, including yours truly, sharing materials, setting advice, project inspiration, and all things Glowforge. And Rachel, I know that a bunch of folks in your group have questions about Glowforge, questions for me, and so I am here. I'm here for you. I'm here for your people. What can I tell you about Glowforge? What should we talk about today?
Well, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to chat with you and just share these questions with you. So, when I found out you were willing to do this, I was really excited and I shared it with my Facebook group. I put out a forum, and within minutes, I had tons of questions to to ask you here. So we had to consolidate, and I tried to, pick the ones that were probably the most asked. So maybe let's start with what I think is the most asked question, probably in the group, as well as in the forum, and then we'll just go from there. Sound good?
Fantastic. And welcome everybody. Hi,
Perfect.
Becky. Wisconsin's where all my in-laws live. I'm there all the time. In fact, my wife is en route there right now, going to visit.
Oh
So
my
I hope
gosh.
the weather's good.
It's great. Yeah. All right. So I think the biggest asked question in our group is around reaching customer support, since a lot of the folks that use the Aura and the Spark, they are hobby crafters. So they're not crafting during the day, like as their job or as their small business. They're typically crafting at night and on weekends. So for a lot of them, it's difficult for them to reach customer support. So wanted to see what advice you might have for them if they wanted to be able to reach customer support, especially on the phone, to get some quick help. What would you say to them?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So many options and things are just getting better. So let me kind of go through the list. So to start out, of course, you can always email. Hey, I'm in Seattle too. Yeah, you can always email support@glowforge.com. Not the quickest way to get a hold. We usually get back within one business day, but you're going to wind up having that email go directly to whatever expert is going to be able to help best. They can pull up technical information on your machine. If you ordered directly from us, they can look up information on shipping and everything else. It is kind of the one-stop shop to get something answered if it is not urgent. If it is more urgent, our average wait times are now under 60 seconds. So while it can vary a lot, things can get backed up sometimes. But typically during our phone hours, which I want to say are 8 a.m. Pacific to 3 p.m. Pacific on weekdays, and now on weekends from 10 to 3 p.m. I think that's right, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific. You're going to get somebody really quickly, and if it doesn't work, you can after you've been on hold, you can get a call back or voicemail. So same day response on both of those. So that's the best plan if you need somebody to talk to live or if you want to connect with somebody from Glowforge immediately. But there are so many more options than that. So there is support chat, which for some folks that's great because you can kind of leave it in the window. You can talk when you talk and do your thing and go back and
Mm.
forth. And
Yeah.
probably the biggest thing is there's so many folks online who are there to help. I know you are there, and the turnaround between you and the folks in your group is amazing. So you can post in the group for advice. And don't sleep on the chat while you're printing. So while you're printing, the chat window pops up and you can fill in
Yep.
and you can go into there for Discord. And oh my gosh, there are Glowforge staff. I'm in there. There are folks who can typically get answers to those sorts of questions really quickly as well. So there's no shortage of ways to go. I should also add that things are just getting better. Normally we don't talk about stuff to come, but this one is like it's right around the corner. We've had so many folks who've been buying auras, buying sparks, and we're scaling up our support to match. So we're going to be increasing by I think another 30% the number of folks who are there
Wow.
answering phones and email. So that's going to bring down those times even more. And as I mentioned, we just added weekends. So now you do have those slots during the weekend to call in if that's the best time to get help.
That is really great. I didn't know you had added weekends yet, so that's wonderful.
I think we've soft launch weekends, which means you can call on the weekend and get help between 10 and 3 Pacific time, but we haven't put the hours up yet. I think in another week or
Okay.
two, when we have those additional support staff coming in to help, we're going to post it so then everybody knows. But okay, I said I couldn't like tell any secrets, but I already broke my own rule. Yeah, there's already weekend support.
Well, thank
It's
you. That's
just not on the
great.
site yet.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. All
Absolutely.
right. So, another question that often comes up is, folks will kind of occasionally, come up against a challenge where their aura it's not cutting all the way through, or maybe it's just not acting the way that they're expecting. What are some of like the first things you would recommend somebody does if something's just not working correctly? They're coming up against a wall. What is there kind of your typical couple first 3 or 4 steps that you would suggest that they do?
Um, I'm the wrong person to ask because I have one of the first auras ever made, and I use it all the time, and it works flawlessly. So I've never had to go through the troubleshooting, but I know a little bit. I
Yeah.
know enough to be dangerous. So I'll give it a shot. Um,
Okay.
I'll give you a little bit of sort of the lay of the land for these things. So the first thing is people say like, oh no, is something wrong with my machine? So it's not impossible. There is a low single digit percent. I think it's like 3% of machines are going to arrive broken, and that stinks. And that's part of like from the last test of the factory, and every Aura is tested and every Spark is tested extensively. They're manufactured by Jabil, which is a world leader in manufacturing, one of the largest manufacturing firms in the world, an incredibly high quality process. And still, between there and shipping and when it finally gets there, there's going to be a small percentage that actually have a problem. And if you look at 3% times you've got over 6,000 members, that means that like 3% is a really small number for a manufactured product, but that's still 180 people that are going to wind up with something where they're going to have to call support and we're going to have to go get the hardware fixed. So that's the first consideration. The second one is if you are the material that you cut has a massive impact on how your
Yep.
Aura or Spark is going to work. And I'll give you some examples. On the one hand, I like, I'm cutting hardwood and acrylic and I'm using Proofgrade materials. And I like that pop up that says clean your rails. I sometimes forget and ignore it, and I've never had a
I
problem.
love that pop up.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. And by the way, like if anybody is, that's daunting. It's like you take one of these like lens wipes that, you get cheap on Amazon and it just takes a minute. So, on the other hand, on the other extreme, we've had folks who've written into support and they said, "Hey, my unit stopped working. What's going on? What were you cutting? Oh, I was cutting a record album." We're like, I'm sorry, but that's it. Game, set, and match. That's like putting a metal pot in your microwave and hitting go. Like it's done. And they're like, but it was only 2 minutes. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Like that's really bad. And then in between, there's a lot of variety. So probably the biggest gotcha is wood products. Because if you
Mhm.
take like natural hardwood and put it in there, it doesn't matter where it's from, but pine, cherry, um, dried pine, I should say, because there's also like wet, sappy pine, which is bad. But if you have like high quality material, wood, it's great. Plywood, it depends what glue they use and who knows what glue they
Right.
use and you can't tell. And some of the
Yeah.
most expensive stuff can be some of the worst on your machine because like it has lots of glue that gets vaporized and goops things up and then you have to clean your rails all the time. So the material can be a big part of the challenge, and you want to just be sure that you're working with a supplier who's not just high quality material, but material that is going to work well with a laser. So it doesn't have to be proof grade material, but if you're finding that your laser's continually running into problems, the material's a good suspect. That's
Yeah.
so
I
that's where I'd start.
absolutely agree. I mean, that's been my experience as well. What I've seen in the group is that it seems like the material has such a huge impact. And I think the biggest one that we've seen is the material being warped. So even if it comes in totally flat, from whatever the supplier is, the way it's stored in the beginning, I had some things stored standing up and then they warped. And it's sometimes really hard to see. It looks totally flat. And then you put
Yep.
it in and it just that slight warping changes the way the laser, focuses on the material. and now there's parts that don't cut through, and it's the material
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, it's actually it's a great point because the laser is has to focus very precisely, and if the material's warped, then it'll focus in one place and not in another, and so it's going to cut through on the part that's focused and not on the part that's not. And
Exactly.
yeah, as you already alluded, one of the big tips is for your wood products, you want to store them flat, not on edge, because on
Yes.
edge they're much more likely to warp.
I got a new
So
set of drawers just to store
my
some of the
IKEA
bigger
drawers are
ones flat.
behind me. I found just the
Yeah,
ones that are the right size. It's great.
exactly. That's great. Okay, well, obviously, I really appreciate your time here to answer questions. But some folks wanted to know, outside of asking you questions here, is there a way that they can reach you if they want to reach you directly?
Yeah, actually, if somebody's got something and like I really need to see it, there's probably two ways. One
Okay.
is that I mentioned the chat while you're printing while that's up. I keep a window open. If you don't know, by the way, you can register. So while you're printing, you're like signed into the
Mhm.
chat as a guest, and there's only one channel. But you can sign up and register, and then, hey John, then you can actually go in and anytime you can have that open in a window. You can upload files. There's different channels and lots more that you can do. And I'm in there like most of the day. I have it open in a window. I'm not always looking at it, but if you tag me in there, there's a decent chance I'll see it. And then the other one is you can just email me, danshapiro@glowforge.com. It goes to me. A copy of it goes to the support team. So somebody will get back to you and I will definitely see it. So if there's
That's great.
something that you got, like need to have my attention on, just shoot me an email,
That's great
danshapiro@glowforge.com.
to know you're in the chat.
Yes, yes. Lurking often, but keep an eye on things. I try to help when I can.
That's great. All right. So another question that comes up somewhat often, and I think this would be a really great thing for you to talk to, is about proof grade material. Folks will go to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, and they're like, "Why can I buy maple for this amount, but proof grade costs this?" Can you talk a little bit about that, and why proof grade is more expensive?
So I'll tell you a little bit of the history of Glowforge. So
And you
first,
started on that a little bit, but I think
yeah,
there's more to
I'll even go
tell.
back to the prehistory when I used to have a wood shop and I loved woodworking. I built our dining room table, I built our coffee table, and when the twins were born 15 years ago, that was the end of woodworking because like set up the things and do the thing and then clean up the thing. Nope, I had like 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, and
Yeah.
Glowforge let me start woodworking again. It let me start creating things with wood, which was amazing and so empowering because I could like here and there I could work on a design and then when I had a little time I'd hit the button and
Yeah.
it's been incredible. The thing that I hated most about woodworking was finishing, sanding, spraying, and then when I got the
Yeah.
laser, I realized there's another problem, which is the laser deposits material back onto the onto whatever it cuts or engraves. And not only does
Yep.
that not look great, but it's stinky and it's sticky. And so the
Yeah.
way around that is to put masking on it. But not all masking works. In fact, a lot of the
Right.
brown masking, we use a very special brown masking on the Eco acrylic, but a lot of the brown masking is really flammable. It'll melt in and sort of
Mm.
fuse to what's underneath.
Yeah.
And then we had another problem. We had another problem, which was if you are lasering something, we want to know for certain that it's going to be safe. It's going to be safe for you to have in your home. And we know you might be venting it through the window. We know you might have it with a filter. And so I sat there going, how do I feel comfortable that I've got something in my home that I know is going to be something I'm proud of and that I'm not worried about for my kids? So we
Yeah.
created the proof grade line to solve all these problems. And there's a lot of things that go on. So I'll give you some examples. Typical plywood, the sheets on the outside look perfect and they don't have any knots. But on the well, the expensive stuff. But on the inside, they have knots because it's on the inside, or they
Yeah.
punch the knot out and then they glue in a plug. And that's very high quality plywood. The problem is those plugs are laser proof. So when you go
Mhm.
even really high quality plywood, you'll wind up doing all these cuts and then they'll have these weird like football shapes that don't cut out. That's because
Yeah.
inside there's a void that they fixed with glue that doesn't work. So we actually commission our plywood with special interior plies with special glue so that it cuts well and cleanly. We also pre-sand we apply a finish. That finish is something that we've selected that works well. As you know, we apply the masking coat so you can peel off
Right.
and the bar, like all the stuff you see. And then other stuff you don't. Like every piece of material is evaluated, and we work with an air quality firm and a toxicology firm to understand exactly what is going on inside your laser. And by the way, we reject, I think something like half of the materials that we test because they don't pass those standards. So
Wow.
when you're using Proofgrade materials, you're using materials that have been custom selected at quality levels that it's just a different criteria, right? Like the highest quality plywood for furniture is different than the high quality material that goes into Proofgrade materials that's been tested, that's been pre-processed, and all that goes in to make sure that it is the highest possible quality material. And with all that, if you go look, there's not a lot of places where you can buy finished clear, which is the woodworking term for it doesn't have knots, clear material. It's actually priced very similarly to that same high quality category, but with all those features added. So that's what we tried to do with Proofgrade. We did not want to say, look, we're just doing another, like, Lowe's sells Lowe's plywood, right? Home Depot sells something. Like, there's places you can go to get
Yeah.
that. We wanted to do something that would leave you 100% certain it was going to print every time. Because, by the way, if your print ever fails with Proofgrade materials, email support and they will refund your material. So you know it's going to work every time, and where you could feel totally confident and secure about the product that you were using.
That's great.
Sorry, more than you ever wanted to know about lumber and Proofgrade and
Oh,
everything else.
you
And
added
that's
so much
just the
more than I
wood.
knew.
I could go into the
That's
acrylic. That's a whole nother story.
Oh, yeah, I bet. No, that's amazing. I mean, we've talked about this before, but my 6-year-old absolutely loves to craft with me. He loves using the spark and the aura and just being able to make almost anything he can think of. And so it is so important to me that the material that we're using is going to be safe. It's in our house. My kids are around it. That's really great to know.
Yeah, I mean, you can't see, but I'm here in the basement, and my aura is right here next to me, and so using the filter, I can feel secure that I'm being safe. When my kids come in and sit down and use this, I know that I don't worry because there's no air circulation here. This is a basement, and so it's
Yeah,
gotta, like, the whole system has to work and work together to be sure that we're taking care of the little ones in our lives and ourselves.
that's really great. All right. So similarly on the topic of materials, but let's say somebody does want to use a material that's not available in Proofgrade. Do you have any tips for them on how to pick the right materials? And I tend to err on the side of like extra caution. If it doesn't clearly say laser safe, I'm probably not putting it in the machine. But there's so many questions around that. So what are your tips?
So there's a couple of companies that produce materials that are designed for lasers that are really high quality. Rowmark, Rowmark, has a line of plastics that's really good. My friend Zach has a company, Inventables, that sells materials that are designed for lasers. Although they might have less inventory than before. But the key thing is that there's somebody accountable who's going to say, yes, we tested this, we know it's going to work with a laser. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is there's materials like slate, where for stone products
Mhm.
it's easy. You can use just about anything because you're engraving the surface rather than cutting it, and because as such it doesn't have the the smoke or whatever it is vaporized. And so I buy
Yeah.
cheap slate all the time from the craft stores. I happen to have one thing next to me just because I did a test print and I haven't put it anywhere else yet. But for Passover, we did a Seder plate, and I used Magic Canvas to make a bunch of pictures and put them on
That's
this
awesome.
$10 round piece of slate. And I went into the forums at community.glowforge.com and I searched for slate settings, and I found the settings. And then I ran one in my Aura and I ran one in my Pro at the same time, and cranked this out, and they look the same. They're fantastic, and you can get a tremendous amount of detail. I actually did a test run just to be sure I sort of could get the numbers dialed in. So I was
Yeah.
engraved on a little slate coaster some detailed fonts. But yeah, if I'm working with a new piece of material, I'm going to go into community.glowforge.com. Come on, focus. I'll be blurry for a minute till my camera
It'll
catches
come
up.
back.
Yeah. I'll go into community.glowforge.com and I'll just search for settings for Slate or settings for Cork or whatever it is, and use those to start with. And then there's a great article in the support database. If you search for Glowforge working with manual mode, that talks about
Yes.
in lots of detail about how speed works and power works and lines per inch work and how you can balance all of those together. I should also note, yeah, the Proofgrade settings for material are a reasonable place to start. You can go in and pick, acrylic from the drop down, plywood, and try those. But acrylic tends to be pretty similar if it's the same thickness. Plywood varies a lot. So plywood's really the trickiest one, and the one where there's the widest variation between material. It takes a lot of experimentation, and
Yeah,
you have to be sure that it's the right material.
that makes a lot of sense. Is that probably because of the glue, you think?
It's the glue. I know
Yeah.
way more about plywood than I ever thought I was going to, but the short answer is it's the glue.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so let's see. Okay, so premium. So this does come up quite a bit in the group. I think there's a little bit of confusion when people first get exposed to Glowforge and the Aura and the Spark, in particular, where they see premium and they wonder, do they have to pay for the subscription in order to be able to print? So no, obviously you don't. You can print without it. But can you talk a little bit about the premium features, what you do get with premium, and why that's an added feature, why there's an extra charge for that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you a little bit of the history of that, which may also be helpful in terms of understanding what you might want it for, what you don't need it for, and everything else. So for the first 4 years that Glowforge was around, we didn't have premium, and the product is exactly the same as it is today without premium. So um, uh, when you buy your Glowforge, you get free access to the software for life, and that means upgrades like your Aura just got way faster. I don't know if everybody noticed. It's a huge, actually, sorry, I should say is getting faster because it's rolling out, and it is magical when it hits because the thing is like lightning. It's huge speed boost. And in fact, the Spark speeds up as well. So like huge improvements, and that's free. That's part of our service. So when you buy your
Hmm.
Glowforge, we take a bunch of the money that we get and we set it aside to go run the servers for you forever and operate the software. And that comes with everything you need in order to create things. And so
Yeah.
again, for the first 4 years, what happened when you get your Glowforge is you say what software do you want to use, and there are dozens of software packages you can use. You can use free software like Inkscape. You can use paid software like Adobe Illustrator. You can, for those of you who are coming from Cricut, Cricut uses SVGs. Glowforge uses SVGs. You can use your Cricut software. You can use your Cricut design space. You can use your Cricut designs. Like if it's an SVG, you can bring it in.
Yeah.
So you can use whatever tools you want. And then the free software that comes with your Glowforge for life lets you take that, put it in place, dial in the settings, and go. And that's what the Glowforge software did. And over the
Hmm.
while, we had so many people come to us and say, look, I don't like Adobe Illustrator is scary and Inkscape is a little daunting. And
Yeah.
could you put something together? And at the same time, we saw people where a typical Glowforge user was spending a huge amount of money on custom fonts and icons and designs and SVG downloads
Yeah.
and all these things that they had to sort of piece together a la carte one at a time. And so they'd go to Etsy and they'd buy a design and they'd go and they'd buy a font kit and all these different pieces and it's sort of patching it all together. So
Yeah.
we decided to come together and say, okay, if we had a monthly fee, what could we do that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise? Well, we'd be able to license millions of icons, thousands of fonts. We'd be able to pay designers to create designs that people could print and then pay the designer every time that they got printed. We could build advanced AI software that, by the way, costs a bundle to run. Like every time you use Magic Canvas, we're going and paying Google for the supercomputer that's used on the back end, and it is a supercomputer. Like it's way more powerful than any computer in any of our homes to go run and operate that, to go generate
Yeah.
that AI artwork. And that's what we're able to do with the premium. And one of the things I was really proud of is that in launching premium, we didn't take anything away from the free software that we guaranteed everybody, that everybody loved and used for years and years. So we added the design tools, we added the free content, we added all those things that cost us every month to run, and then the premium cost is tied to keeping the service running for that. But as somebody who used my Glowforge for 4 years before premium existed, you absolutely do not need it. You can use your own software. You can find your fonts and designs and from wherever, or create them yourself. And so I
Yeah.
love it. And it makes my life like slick and fast, and the being able to knock out a design from nothing, because I can't draw using Magic Canvas, being able to say, oh, I'm excited about this. Like, for me, it's a great value. And I'm somebody who, like, we don't do Hulu and Netflix at the same time. We like pick the one that we want. Like, I'm picky about my subscriptions, but
Yeah.
but for me, it makes sense. And I totally get it that it doesn't for everybody, and you do not need it to have a wonderful time with your Glowforge.
Yeah. No, I will say I use Inkscape a lot, so I know it's daunting, and there's still parts of it that are daunting to me. But I am capable of making my own designs and SVGs and then importing them. But I do love, especially for my family that doesn't do all of that, that they can literally sit down, use the software, make anything, and just go. Like, for my kids, it's so special for them to be able to sit down and like do it themselves. It's a really nice feature for sure.
And I will say, for me, Magic Canvas was was the breakthrough. It is the thing when I'm excited and I want to create something. It is my go-to. And by the way,
Mhm.
just as a note, something that I think a lot of people don't know is that if you go to the no filter Magic Canvas, the color one, you can describe the thing you want, and it will show you what it might look like, which I use as a brainstorming tool. So I may say
Oh,
something
that's
like, heart-shaped pendant, in laser cut wood or something like that, and then it'll create something that looks like it. And I'll go like, that's a neat idea. Let's do another one. Let's do another one. Or engraved cutting board in the kitchen, and I will use that to help like brainstorm ideas. And then I'll go into one of the engraved designs or one of the cut designs, and I'll actually go create the file I'm going to use. And so for me, it's a
that's a
really
great idea.
fun, creative, like dynamic that I just haven't found anything like it before.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I'll have to try that.
I think that was
All
actually
right.
how I came up with my laser engraved blue jeans. I was like, all right,
Oh,
what
that's
would laser
right.
engraved blue jeans look like? I'll visualize it and see.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Alrighty. So another thing that comes up, I think, and this has been coming up more because of the speed upgrades and the announcements you've been making of all the new things that have come to the Spark and the Aura. So people are asking, is there anything else you might be able to disclose that might be coming? I know you did mention customer support. So is there anything you can maybe share? Like, some of the things that come up in the group is, being able to use third-party software to be able to print, or like software assisted pass through like the Pro has. So folks have been asking, is there anything else you can tell
I,
us?
I hate those companies that make lots of promises and then never deliver and give dates
Yeah.
and blow the dates. So I try to say anything like it's not done until it's done. I already messed up and told you that like, oh, weekend support is coming in a week, and it's actually on right now, so you can reach us on weekends. So whoops. But no, I should keep things under wraps. I will just say that like, you can see the software, you can see where it is. I think all the amazing members of your group have identified some of the same things that we're excited about. The one thing I'll say is, in terms of working with more software, like, it works with just about any design software you want. And we talked about Adobe Illustrator and Inkscape, but I'll tell you, we somebody on our finance team was not interested in Adobe Illustrator, was not interested
Yeah.
in Inkscape. What I mentioned this to you before we started, but I forgot the details. She had this idea. She went to Starbucks. She got one of those, the paper things that like keep your hand from burning, right?
Yeah.
That go around the cup. She took one, unwrapped it because it's just glued together, laid it down on a piece of paper, traced it with a pen, then went into Microsoft Word and said coffee because something something, I don't remember what it was, but some funny slogan in a cool font, printed that out, cut out the thing she printed in Microsoft Word, taped it on top of the outline of the coffee koozie, put that in the Glowforge, used trace to create the cut line and the engraving, and then put in a piece of leather
Gosh.
and made this beautiful coffee koozie that looked like something that you would buy on Etsy. Like, it was fantastic. And she did it
That's
with
so creative.
Microsoft Word. And by the way, like you can also export from, I've seen schools that use Google Slides or PowerPoint to design. So if it makes a PDF, you can bring it in. If it makes a JPEG, you can engrave it. So I'm like, bring your own software. If you're used to using Cricut software, use Cricut software. If you're used to using CorelDRAW, use CorelDRAW.
Yeah.
Whatever works for folks should work with your Glowforge.
Mhm. That's really great. Yeah, and a lot of folks I think use Canva too, because if you have
Oh
Canva
yeah,
Pro, you can export to SVG, and a lot of people are used to that too.
my kids use Canva all day long. Although I don't think they've used it with a Glowforge. Hmm, that's something. They've been doing
Well,
a lot
there's
of,
a
especially
challenge.
my daughter's been doing a lot of Magic Canvas too. She plays double bass and we have guinea pigs, and so she used Magic Canvas to make a guinea pig playing double bass and made it into earrings. So she had earrings of her pet playing her instrument. She came home
It's
from
cute.
school and said, "Daddy, can I take money from teachers?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, what, honey?" And she's like, "I wore these into class and everybody wants to buy them from me, including the teacher. Can I sell my
That's
earrings to the
awesome.
teacher?" And I was like, "You should give the teacher the earrings for free. That's just a little
Yeah.
complicated, but by all means sell the rest." Like, so there's like,
Yeah.
turtles playing tubas, and everybody wanted like their pet playing their instrument.
My kids have made so many earrings for their teachers this year.
It's
It's
incredible.
yeah.
It is
All right.
something
So
amazing.
another question that comes up often, especially when people first buy the machine, is, they get the Aura, they get the Spark, whatever it is. What other materials do they need to like get the most out of it? So like what other tools or stuff do you recommend?
You know, the only thing I like, something that a lot of people are wondering is like, does it take ink? Do I have to buy
Yeah.
consumables? And really, all you need is a power plug and some wipes. Like, get some of the lens wipes.
Yes.
Um,
I have the
and
jumbo box from Amazon of those.
Yep, that's a good way to do it. That's about it. Besides the materials. So the simple answer is like, no, you don't need anything. Like you've got your material, whatever materials you're going to print on, and that's about it. But if somebody's getting going, they're like, no, 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 I really want to, like, I want the full meal deal. A premium subscription makes it lots easier to get started because you've got all the designs and fonts and everything right there. You don't have to go collect it. If you're not doing premium, then I'd say pick design software that you're going to spend a lot of time with and fall in love with and get really good at using because you want something that helps you to create. Um, a selection of materials, and it's really fun to have some variety. I think that two materials that people overlook when they're new because they're scary, but things that are
Mhm.
really neat, and because they can be expensive in big pieces, but they're awesome in small items, is leather, because you can do
Mhm.
patches, you can do like so on, and because you can make really valuable things like a wallet that would cost hundreds of dollars is like a custom handmade wallet you can do with $40 of material. And so
Yeah.
it can be intimidating. Also, the sewing thing is scary, but like
Mm.
the thing is, since your Glowforge is so precise, it cuts the holes for you. So I can't sew, but I'm going to make myself blurry again. Uh, but because it makes the
That looks
holes for
great.
you, you
Yeah.
take a dull needle because otherwise I would hurt myself. And you just go in and out. It's like lacing up your shoe. It's not like sewing. It's like shoelaces. And so I sit there
Yeah.
watching a movie, and I don't know how to do that, and assemble my wallet. So leather is easy to get intimidated and sleep on that, but don't. And the other one is wood veneer, which is expensive in the big
Mhm.
pieces, but it makes these gorgeous wood veneer stickers, and each one is little, so you can make tons of them. It's amazing for
Yeah.
personalizing things. So I definitely encourage playing with some of those materials. Oh, and earlier you asked about other materials that are not sourced from us or from laser vendors. Any organic cloth. So cotton, silk, for some reason you have it. Any organic cloth is something that you
Huh.
can, a canvas you can cut, and some of them you can engrave. And if you're very
Yeah.
careful when you engrave blue jean material, it shows up nicely and looks good. It can weaken the material a little bit, So, it's good for like if you're doing a patch and, but like for canvas, it can turn like a nice tan. So it's something to experiment with, and be sure that you're doing that on like a cheap piece of material, and then, test
Right.
it and be sure you haven't weakened the material. But those are great ones to experiment. But yeah, it's really just the materials. You also,
Yeah.
there's some odds and ends. You can get some magnets, like small, powerful magnets uh, that can be helpful for. You mentioned if material is warped, it's also useful if. Oh, I nearly forgot. Sheets of paper. If you in that
Yes.
drop down, you can type in copy paper, and it's fantastic because you can make such cool things with it, and you can test things out, and you can try things, and it's basically free, and it's basically unlimited. So like, don't sleep on doing cool stuff. You can engrave copy paper, you can cut it, you can score it to make like origami. It is a great
Yeah.
way to kind of get your feet wet. I don't know, what are some of your favorite materials? What do you recommend?
So I love leather too. Actually, one of the things that first got me into crafting, kind of like the craft blog side of thing where I was teaching people, was rolled flowers. I absolutely loved making rolled flowers and making new patterns for them to share and teach people how to make them. And one of the very first things I made when I got the Aura was rolled flowers out of leather. And they're just so pretty compared to the paper ones. The paper ones are still great, but the leather is just like a whole different level. And I love
And you can
cardstock.
do
That's
both.
kind
You
of
can test the design on paper and then switch it over to leather when you've got it just the way you want it.
yes. Yes, and I do that all the time. I'll use, like, scrap cardstock or scrap paper, and I'll just test things on it because that's just so much easier than, when I'm making a new design, I'll sometimes have to print it and make it 4 or 5 times before it, like, is just right, and it's just so much better to do that with paper than acrylic or wood. Um, but yeah, I think one of the other, tools that I really, really like is clamps. So whenever I'm making something where I have to glue acrylic or wood together or whatever it is, the clamps are great because then I can put it in place, clamp it down, and go do something else and not not worry about it sliding.
That is
So that's
smart.
one that's high on my list.
Yeah, fantastic. I know we're close to
So
time. Yeah,
oh, are we?
the
Okay.
time flies by. What else you got for me, Rachel?
I have 2 more questions if you have time.
Perfect. Yes. I think we've got up
Um,
till quarter
are
till.
you big into books? Are you reading anything right now? Somebody wanted to know what you might be reading if you're into reading.
I don't read nearly as much as I wish I did, but I do. I am in the middle of something I'm really excited about, which is cheating a little bit because it's not out yet. But a friend of mine is this amazing science fiction author, Mary Robinette Kowal, and she has a series called the Lady Astronaut series that is spectacular. And the
That's
first three books are out, and she sent me the early version of four, which is available for pre-order. But if you haven't started, it doesn't matter. It is spectacular. It is
yeah.
basically an alternate history where the space program started 10, 15 years sooner because reasons, and they didn't have computers then. Well, actually, they did, but what the word computer back then meant somebody who was trained to do math. And the people who were
Okay.
trained to do math were all women. And so they had to rush women into the space program in the 50s, and it turns everything upside down. It turns gender roles upside down, it turns the space program upside down, and it's a fascinating alternate history of like the world as it could be as in this. And so highly recommended. The Calculating Stars, I think, is the first book in the series. So it's
Okay.
wonderful. And
Yeah.
then I also have to plug my brother's book because, it's not most recent, but it came out last year. New York Times bestseller. It's family.
That's
But my
great.
brother Ari Shapiro wrote a book called "The Best Strangers in the World," and it is about his decades as the host of NPR's All Things Considered. And proud brother. It is a phenomenal read. Unbelievable stories of all sorts of amazing people across the globe. So those are if you're looking at my bookshelf, those are the two that you're going to see: The Best Strangers in the World and The Calculating Stars.
That's great. Yeah, I love alternate history and science fiction, so
Oh
that
yeah,
was right up my alley.
Mary
I'll
Robinette
have to
stuff.
see that.
Then
Do
outstanding.
you have room for one more question?
Absolutely, let's do it.
What is the last thing you made with your aura?
Hmm. Um, it's cheating because it's a Mother's Day card that I made way after Mother's Day, just because I was testing something out and I was playing around with some Magic Canvas stuff and some fonts, and I was like, "What am I going to do?" I remember I said like, "Paper, don't sleep on paper." So it was
Yep.
a Mother's Day card, not production ready, right? Because like if I was doing this, I would have color behind it and everything else. But this was just a quick and dirty playing with some Magic Canvas stuff and trying it out and showing somebody how it worked all in one. But that's just like the most recent thing. I don't know if I hold
That's
on.
fun.
Uh, I'm just opening up my app so I can tell you exactly because I can see all the most recent things. And then before that, I did a pendant with Magic Canvas. I did. We have this silhouette picture frame in the
Mhm.
catalog that I love, and I printed it years ago. And it has these little wedges to hold the pictures in, and one of them fell off. So I reprinted one of the wedges. I think I showed you and then yeah, the Seder plate that I showed you, and that was a while ago, and some keychains. That was kind of the most recent.
That's great.
And then lots of test prints because I'm always just like trying out things. Like I want to see the new high speed print stuff. So just printing
Yeah.
random shapes and Magic Canvas engravings for fun and to see how it works. How about you?
Yeah.
What's been your
It's so
latest
much
creation? I
fun.
know you go to Instagram and probably see, but
You can
what's
probably see a
cooking?
bunch of stuff. I think I've been doing a lot of cards lately. I've been playing with a lot of cardstock. When I first got the Aura, everything was basically wood and leather and acrylic, and I've been playing with cardstock again. So it's fun to just try out different materials.
It really is, and it's so empowering to be able to see these opportunities and these things that you create in the world. Somebody early on, one of the earliest Glowforge owners, had a great line. It says, "When you have a laser, every problem looks like a laser problem." And it is this different way of looking at the world when you see something and you think, "Oh, I could do that myself. I could do that better. I could do that in a way that's more special, that's more meaningful." And sometimes it's easy to forget how potent that is. We were going to a friend's house, and we picked out a nice bottle of wine. And I don't know anything about wine, so I did my homework, and I was really proud. And right before we went over, I grabbed a set of 4 slate coasters because they're cheap, and I just keep around stacks of 4. And I engraved something on there that like family name and a cool design or something like that, an initial. And I handed them the bottle of wine, and then I handed the coaster, and they completely ignored the bottle of wine. They did not even register, and they were so excited about the coasters. The next time we visited them, the coasters were on display on like the
That's
top of a
great.
cabinet that they were shocked because that was so much more meaningful. And it is
Yeah,
easy to forget the creative superpowers that we have. It is easy to overlook or underestimate the impact that we can have on people and have on the world by creating things ourselves. But oh my gosh, it is so wonderful and it is so inspiring to me to be able to create and to see people create the world around them that they want.
it's so true.
Oh, well, this is so much fun. I uh, love the questions. As I mentioned, feel free to shoot email Dan Shapiro at glowforge.com, hang out in the chat, and of course, the your group is such an amazing resource for Spark and Aura owners. In case we've got folks who are
Thank
watching
you.
who are not members, do you want to let folks know where to find it and what to expect there?
Sure. It's let's see, it's got a long name, but I can drop it in the chat. I'll need a
Perfect.
second to find the link.
And
But
I think we can put it in the. Actually, I think our team can put it in the chat, and we can also put it
they
in
can put it in the
YouTube
chat. Great. Thank
comments
you.
as well.
Yeah, but it's a group basically dedicated to Glowforge Aura and now Glowforge Spark because they are a little bit different, being that they're diode lasers versus the other CO2 lasers. So I wanted to make a group dedicated to that to help with, those specific questions and settings and just helping people through it. And it's grown amazingly and everybody is so supportive inside and I'm very happy with how it's turned out.
And where can they find your blog and your Instagram?
Sure. So
Because those are
I'm
amazing resources too.
analyticalmommy.com is my blog, and I'm Analytical Mommy on almost all social media. So Instagram, TikTok, you name it. You'll probably find me under Analytical Mommy.
Rachel, thank you so much for
And I
spending
see
time with
those
me
links.
today.
Thank you so much for sharing those.
Perfect. Hey, there we go. Excellent.
Yeah. Thank
Uh,
you.
it's it's been a delight, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you for your questions. I love it, and I'm here. I hope we get to do this again soon because it's been really fun.
Thanks so much for having me and for answering all my questions. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rachel. Take care.
Take care. Bye, everyone.